Here. Oops. Hold on. Turn this phone off. That'll help.
How much longer is there in the term?
And a couple weeks left. Graduation.
Couple weeks.
Yeah, at the end.
All right.
I know, getting close.
Do you have a finale scheduled, right? Probably, or not yet?
Yeah.
Or probably coming up soon.
Great question, Glenn. Yeah, tomorrow we're like doing the full logistics for all of our students and announcing it to our community and all that good stuff. So keep an eye out for tomorrow. That's what we're planning to announce everything.
Awesome.
All right, about to get started here.
Now you have to bear with me. I don't present very often, so you might have to help me a little bit when I start to share.
No problem. Well, Glenn, you're very personable, so I'm sure you'll do a great job. But I'm here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out, but yeah, I might need a little hand holding, in the beginning.
No problem. Now, the instructor for this week, is it Nate?
Nathan.
Okay. Hey, Nathan. All right, so it's about 5:32. So if you all don't mind, I'll go ahead and get started. All right, someone has noise going on in the background. We probably want to, make sure that everyone is muted. Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and happy Monday. Here we are in our first week of August, and it is the last month of Careers in Code. Before I begin, I just want to say hello. I've been reading up on your progress, and I just want to give you all a big round of applause. I know it's been weeks and weeks of hard work, and you're still here. You're still standing. Look, it's almost over. The finish line is almost here. Pretty soon you'll be walking across the stage and you'll be hearing Jesse say, congratulations, you are a full stack web developer. I can't wait. But in the meantime, today we have a guest speaker and his name is Glenn Allen. Glenn has been freelancing for over 15 years in software development. Glenn is also very active in our meetup community. And so if you go to the software meetups, you may see him from time to time. And tonight he'll be talking about his freelancing experience over the years. And without further ado, here's Glenn Allen.
Yay. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm going to click on share, right? Share screen.
Yes.
And just the first option is screen. Take that one.
You can go ahead and do that.
Yep.
There you go.
And is my screen being shared?
Yes, we can see your desktop and now we can see your slides.
Awesome. All right. Oh, boy, that was easy. All right. All right. So yes, my name is Glenn Allen and I've been freelancing for several years, over 15. And I've done this talk a couple times with a couple different groups. So it's not specifically tailored for careers in code, but it should work. And actually, I think I gave this talk to the last cohort. Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about my origin story. The way I got into computing, I grew up in the Hudson Valley. And back at that time, 80s, 90s, IBM was king in that area. They had two or three big plants in Fishkill, Kingston, Poughkeepsie, and my dad was a butcher, but all the cool people worked at IBM, right? And I went to a field trip to an IBM facility. I think I was in the 6th grade, and I was really just blown away by the technology, just the size of the disks that they had, the laser printers. The gentleman doing the talk, he was wearing a 3-piece suit, and he was a gentleman that he started in the mailroom without a degree or anything, and he worked his way up to be this manager. So I was just completely enamored and enthralled with computing. And from that point forward, I just decided I've got to be in computer science. So while everyone else is trying to figure out what they're going to major in, I don't know what to do. I knew what I wanted to do in the 6th grade. So that made my career planning a lot easier. So I did the normal route. I got an associate's degree in computer science at Dutchess Community College. Then I went to Utica, SUNY Poly, got a bachelor's there. And then I earned a master's, 2 masters actually, at Syracuse on a part-time basis. And that was pretty, well, that was maybe a little grueling, but very, very worth it. And I love school, love learning. One of the notes I have here, I used to want to be a manager. I think that's why I took that engineering management degree, because that degree was to get people in a technology field prepared to be a manager in technology. And after working in industry, I don't know, I just kind of lost my desire to be a manager. I wasn't too thrilled with full-time employment. You know, I worked for some average companies, and it just turned me off. It just seemed like you could work, work, and sometimes your efforts weren't recognized. So that's how I branched into freelancing, because as a freelancer, you're basically, paid for what you're doing. You're not really married to a company. You're compensated well for doing a good job, and that's kind of where it ends. And if you keep doing a good job, they'll keep you on, and hopefully they have money, budget, and it works out well. So yeah, I just abandoned my hopes of being a CIO and all that, and went the independent route. Okay, maybe I said too much. All right, so in this presentation, I put some funny videos and stuff that doesn't really work. So I'm not going to share the video, but what loss of innocence means, I worked on a very hard project at a local company. We were implementing SAP software, which is a very complicated software. It's what I do now. And I worked my butt off. I worked weekends, nights. I get called in. I'd be playing volleyball, after work, and get called, have to come in and do some work. And this went on for several months, probably a good 6 months. And I would say there were 2 groups of employees that were on this project. I would say I was like in a B group, where we did quite a bit of work, like I said, nights and weekends. There was an A group that literally lived at the company. I mean, they never got away. And then the C group were people that basically went home at 5, just normal 9 to 5s. They didn't really get affected that much by the project. So anyway, at some point in the project, I'd gotten wind that people in the A group had a deal that if the project was implemented successfully and they stayed with the company for a month or 2, they would get a nice bonus, 10% of salary. And I wasn't offered a deal. I should have asked the manager about it and tried to get a deal for myself, but unfortunately I wimped out. I just assumed that the company would do the right thing. They'd take care of me, give me maybe 5% of salary bonus, something commensurate with the effort I put in. And when the bonus time came, I got $500, and that was crushing. I mean, that was like I call my loss of innocence, that you can't depend on a company to do the right thing. If I could do it over again, I would have just marched right into the manager's office and said, "Hey, I heard about these deals. I know I'm not doing as much as the A group, but I'm putting in a lot of effort here. I should have some kind of a deal." So that was my loss of innocence. And after that, I was seeking a way out. I didn't really want to be an employee anymore. If I'm going to work all these hours, I need to get paid for it. I can't trust that I'm going to get rewarded, because there's no guarantee. Okay, so that's my origin story. Now getting into more of the business aspects of being a freelancer. There's lots of different ways you could do it. You have to have a business type. You could be a sole proprietor. I went this, what they call an LLC, a limited liability company. So it's a nice combination of being like a corporate entity, but also having like individual rights. You're protected against being sued, liability, but you can also, you don't have to fill out like these different tax reporting documents. If you're an actual like C corporation, there's lots of different reporting you have to do. So an LLC is a nice, just like a middle point between an actual real company and an individual, an individual. So when you are self-employed, you can write things off. That's one of the nice things about it. So like my vehicle, I have business vehicles. I write off my gas. Any kind of computer or phone that I buy, it's a write-off. I get, you can get a little creative with these write-offs. You have to be a little careful. So you can't go too overboard. So that's why I say don't get too crazy. I've heard of people like trying to write off a boat, because you could say, well, I'm going to entertain clients on a boat. I'm going to write off the boat. That would be a big red flag to the IRS. So you can write things off, but don't get crazy. And that leads to the next point of get a good accountant. It's worth it. Rather than spending hours and hours trying to figure out how to do your taxes, and maybe make a mistake, just this is where you should spend your money. Get a good accountant, and they'll keep you out of trouble. Yeah. All right, freedom. So yeah, it's the nice thing about being a freelancer. You're not married to a company. If you do have a bad manager, it's not going to be forever. The contract's going to be whatever, a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year. You're not going to be there forever. If the company tanks, you just get another contract. You find another customer. So that's what that freedom means. You're not married to an organization. Okay. So there's pros and cons to being a freelancer contractor. So this first thing is that, you could be compensated very well. You can make pretty good money. You don't get any benefits, but you get paid, you can get paid 50, 60, maybe up to $100 an hour. If you're doing something really unique, maybe even more, maybe 150 an hour. I have a copy of a tweet. I was involved in a project in 2016 where I was just working crazy overtime, just worked a couple of weeks that were 100-hour weeks, including a couple of days that were like swing shifts, like working 21 hours, like working around the clock, a couple of days like that. And, after doing a month of that, I had the biggest check of my life. I made like 40 grand in a month. So that was pretty cool, because when I first started out my full-time job, my whole salary was less than that. So that was pretty cool. Working all those hours wasn't so cool. I mean, I didn't have a life, but at least I got compensated for that time. If you're an employee, you might not get that. You could be still expected to work those 60, 70, 80-hour weeks and maybe get a bonus, maybe get a good raise, who knows. I put travel as a positive, because I like to see things, go to different places. Let's see, they're not always glamorous, but in my travels, I've spent 9 months in Detroit. That was kind of cool. I like Detroit. I saw a football game. I went to the Motown Museum. That was really interesting. Things I wouldn't normally go there on my own, but because I was there, I had a project in Indianapolis. I went to the Indy Speedway, and I went to the museum there. Where else have I been? I've been to Long Island. Current project is in Chicago, although because of COVID, haven't traveled there in over a year. But yeah, I like to see things, like to do things, and travel's cool. Perks. Every so often, there's an opportunity to get like free stuff. I don't know. Like what comes to mind, I worked for a cutlery company in Long Island, and they were giving away, knives and forks and corkscrews and just different, they had extra extra merchandise that they couldn't sell. So they'd give it to their employees and occasionally to the contractors. So if anyone needs a corkscrew, I have a ton of them. What else? There was also another cool thing. Oh man, I'm blanking out. Yeah, you get treated really well. Sometimes when the big bosses are in town, you go out to some really nice restaurants, get wined and dined, and you're treated like a king. That's pretty cool. And sometimes you can go to let's say I went to a hockey game one time. I was in the corporate box suite. And at that time, I did not know what that meant, a box suite. And basically a box suite is, free, free food, free alcohol as much as you want, a great seat to see the hockey game or whatever sporting event it is. If you ever get invited to a box suite, do it. Really cool. Lastly, I'll say typically you're working with the best. You'd be working with other consultants, other people that are in the top of their field. So it's a great way to learn. I mean, I've learned the most by working like 10 different clients, 10 different setups, 10 different environments, and working with 10 different teams. And you just sort of synthesize that learning. So it's a way to become the best in your field as well. Okay. All right. So crappy aspects. These are the negative aspects. So the flip side of travel is you're not home, right? It's cool to go to, Detroit and Los Angeles and all these places, but someone's got to mow your lawn. You know what I mean? I mentioned here, if you are with a partner, if you have kids, obviously you're not there, days out of the week. So your partner needs to be able to handle these kind of things if there's issue with the kids. And then relationships, it's hard to maintain relationships when you're on a road. I mean, anyone who's on the road will have those kind of challenges. Sometimes it's nice to have, sometimes it's good for relationships. It's nice to have time away. I don't know, depends. Taxes. So as a freelancer, we're subject to self-employment tax. So basically you're paying double the Social Security. I think when you're a full-time employee, you pay, I think it's 7.5%, and the employer picks up 7.5% of that Social Security. When you're self-employed, you're taking the whole thing. You pay the whole thing. So that's not great. Also, competition. Yeah, sometimes you're getting paid well, and if there's budget issues for your project, sometimes people will stab other people in the back. It's possible. You get thrown under the bus, you get blamed for something, maybe it wasn't you. This doesn't happen a lot, but it can happen. I mentioned H-1B visas. If H-1Bs are used in the right way, this is H-1B visa is a legal way to hire foreign people in the U.S. And if it's done properly, it's good. It works out well for everyone, but in many cases, they'll hire the H-1Bs at a cheaper rate. So basically discriminating against US citizens. And that it's all totally illegal, but it happens. So that's a challenge. It's gotten a little better. It was pretty bad maybe 5 or 10 years ago, but that's gotten better. Okay, another thing, another issue with tough times. So when times are good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's bad. So I've had moments where I've been out of work for a long time, for over a year. And I share this. This is a Medicaid card. You qualify for that when you have no income. So not proud of this, but when I'm doing well, I pay taxes up the yin yang. And when I'm doing bad, sometimes I'm eligible for these programs. And actually, I didn't mention this, but also in the negative aspects, insurance, health insurance is terrible. You pay a lot of money for hardly any coverage. And Medicaid is actually really good. It's a really good plan. So when you're making good money, you have to save it, put it away for when times are lean. That's probably good advice for anybody. Let's see. All right. So got some lessons learned. Yeah. So when you're self-employed, you have to pay your taxes quarterly. There's no withholding. When you get that big paycheck, you can't just say, I'm just going to buy a car right now. You're going to have to pay taxes on that income, and that's quarterly. And you've got to pay Uncle Sam. If you don't pay Uncle Sam, you can get into big trouble. So you just have to be disciplined not to blow everything you're making, and pay your taxes and bills, etc. timely. Second point is just a little tidbit I picked up on one project. One time I was being asked about some code. I was in a code review and I wasn't that prepared for it. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know what it does. And one of the managers there that liked me after the words pulled me aside and said, hey, you should never say you don't know. They're paying you good money. You need to know. But that does not mean that you should BS your way out of things. If you really don't know, what you do is you say, well, let me look into that. I'll get back to you later. Let me look into that deeply later. But so which it means you don't know, but you're not saying that. People can debate me on this, but I find that this has worked for me. If I'm asked something, I won't say I don't know. I'll be like, yeah, hey, I'll look into that for you and get back to you after the meeting. Okay, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Let's see, stay true to yourself. So kind of going back to the lean times, Upwork is a website for freelancers, but I find that it's very hard to work with. The rates are usually super low. So during one of my lean periods, I had somebody try to hire me on Upwork, but they wanted me to pretend to be what they had a candidate that they had promised to a company, and then that candidate fell out for some reason. And they wanted me to pretend to be that candidate, so they wouldn't lose face with the end client. And I actually thought about it a little bit. They're going to pay me to do this, and then ultimately I didn't do it because it's just, things happen, right? People take other jobs. Just they should be able to understand, right? And it's just not a good thing to do. So I think it's important to maintain your ethics. No matter what you are, full-time employee, a freelancer, you always need to be honest and be upfront about things, and that in the long run will be good for you, be good for your career. Okay, I think I've gone just about 25 minutes. You could ask me some questions. I'm putting my contact info here. Hopefully that will read. That QR code is actually my LinkedIn QR code, so you can go right to my LinkedIn page. But yeah, feel free to, if you're thinking about questions later on, or if you want advice in software development career, my email's there. Feel free to email me. All right. Any questions?
I've got a question.
Certainly.
For new graduates of this program, or just new folks going into the industry in general, would you recommend that they look into freelancing versus taking quote unquote a standard job, full-time employee?
So my experience with freelancing is I joined it as being an experienced person. I already had 5 years of SAP experience. But I know that there are other folks that will start freelancing when they're beginning, right? Because it's hard to find a full-time job, and maybe it's easier to find a freelancing gig. But my advice would be just take anything, anything that you can get. If you had a full-time gig and a freelancing opportunity, I would say in the beginning, I would probably go with the full-time job. You'd have to evaluate though, like how much is the freelance gig paying? But I think in the beginning, a full-time job would probably be better, just to get that experience. But yeah, take anything you can get, even volunteer, right? Even volunteer, no pay, non-paid opportunities, just to get that experience if that's all that's available. Any other questions? Or did I answer that well?
Totally. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. You're welcome.
I have a question. Is
Sure.
there a penalty if you own a business and you don't file taxes quarterly? I mean, do you have to file quarterly, or was that just more of a strong suggestion?
It is absolutely required. And unfortunately, I actually screwed up this year. Let's see, there's a quarterly payment is due in June 15th. And for some
Okay.
reason, I thought it was July. And yeah, I don't know. I do this every once in a while. I thought it was July. And then it was like at the end of June, it was June 30th. And I happened to see something else about June 15th. I'm like, oh crap.
Oh
So
my
I cut the checks right away and mailed them. But yeah, you end up paying like late fees. And I mean,
God.
you
Mhm.
pay so much in taxes. You know, when you're earning a good living, the taxes are crazy.
Yeah.
And I hate to pay another $100, you know what I mean, just because you know, I was late by 2 weeks.
Mm.
So yeah, it's really important to, you know, put that in your calendar and yeah, pay those bills timely. Absolutely.
Now, how do you go about choosing an accountant? And shouldn't your accountant alert you, or would you already have something in place with your accountant for that fee to be paid?
So, okay. The way I got my account, I use Evans and Bennett. They're on Erie. And
Okay.
I got them through a recommendation. You know, back when I started 15 years ago or so, I had a friend of mine, a colleague that was also freelancing, and that firm was his accountant. And he said, "Yeah, they're pretty good." So, okay. So
Okay.
I went with them, and yeah, my experience has been they've been pretty good. Um, so the way our relationship is, they're not kind of policing me. You know,
Okay.
they're not like giving me reminders. You know, you got to pay more. I mean, you could get like have a stronger relationship where maybe they're managing that stuff for you, but then you're paying for
Mm.
that service.
Right, right,
And I mean, it's not that difficult. I literally scoot. I
right.
mean, it's not that difficult to put in
Yeah.
your calendar. You know,
Okay.
April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, January 15th. You know, put it on your calendar. I mean, I screwed it up myself. You know, I put
Yeah.
July by mistake. But even while the accountants they're not cheap either. I mean, I think I pay $700 for them to do the paperwork. Um, maybe that's not a lot of money. I don't know, but if you know the more you have them do, the more you have to pay.
Yeah.
So
That was a great response. And the reason why I asked is because, not that I'm picking on one accountant firm over another, but sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And to hear, that it's optional, that you can pay more to have that, or you can, that there are different types of accountant packages for someone who has no experience with them. That was a very helpful answer.
yeah, I mean, depending on how you are, like if you're really forgetful, then maybe it's worth it,
Mhm.
you know, to get that extra support. But if you're pretty much on top of things, like me most of the time,
Yeah.
then you won't need as much support.
All right. Well, we have about a minute left. If anyone else has any last questions for Glenn, feel free to come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, Glenn. This is Brielle Daly. I had a
Hey,
question about traveling so much with the freelancing. Now, it can be a nice option to be able to travel, like you said, further away, but do you feel like you could have freelanced and stayed in central New York most of the time?
so what I found with at least with SAP software consulting, most clients want you there. They want you on site, which requires travel. You know, of course, during the experience we just had the last year and a half, people have gone remote. And most everyone's doing remote work, and there was definitely remote engagements with SAP too for years, right? Like some people have been working remotely for years. Like I said, SAP they seem to like you to be there, and that is a premium experience. It is, you know, I think you are more productive when you're in an office and your team is together. You are more productive, and if they're willing to pay, I mean, when I take those jobs, it's expenses paid. So some of the other perks, you're staying in a nice hotel, right? I have Marriott points. I have like 2 million Marriott points. Whenever I go on vacation, I don't have to pay for a hotel. I have points built up that will pay for that. Same thing with airline miles. Sometimes it's not always a flight though. Sometimes it's a drive. Like I spent a year and a half in Ithaca from 2018 to 2019. And I didn't want to commute. That's kind of a horrible commute, a daily commute. So I worked out a deal where I could stay at a hotel. So that was really nice. So I got to, I learned a lot about Ithaca during that time. And it depends on who you are. Like some people will think of that, like, man, weekly going into a plane, taking my shoes off, what a grind. I'm used to it. So to me, it's not a big deal. If that type of environment would be horrible for you, then yeah, you'd want to do the remote option or maybe work with local companies. In my case, since my skill is SAP, there's not too many local companies doing that. So I probably wouldn't be able to have like a local gig. Yeah, like real local. I mean, I've worked with ITT Industries in Seneca Falls, and I worked with Lockheed Martin in Owego, but that's still, an hour plus commute. Did I answer your question? Pretty good. All right, cool. Awesome.
All right. Well, Glenn, we are at time. We want to thank you so much for agreeing to come in and be a guest speaker for Careers in Code. You were absolutely awesome. Can everyone please give them a round of applause? Let's do some Zoom reactions. Come on, let's get it. Let's get it.
Oh, thank you.
All right. And
all right, how do I get out of this? Pause share.
Yeah,
no, stop share.
Yep, stop
share. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, and Jesse, do you have any comments before we let Nathan start with this week's module?
Nope, I think we're all good. Thanks again, Glenn. Appreciate you taking the time. And as Glenn said, if you had any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. But yeah, I think that's all on my end.
And one last thing I'll share. You folks have made an excellent decision. This is the best decision you've made in your lives, getting involved in software and in technology. Even if development's not your thing, if you're more on the sales side or management, technology, it's where it's at. So you're in the right spot. Congratulations, folks. All right. Have a good lesson tonight.
Glenn, feel free to hang around if you want to see what the students are learning tonight. We have no objections. If you want to, stay around and peek in the class for a little while, the students are awesome. And of course, the instructors are great. And without further ado, we will have Nathan start this week's module for Careers in Code.
Thank you so much. This is going to be anticlimactic, but does anybody mind if we take a 5-minute break before we jump in? Cool. Okay, I will see you guys at 6:10. Sorry. Didn't mean to direct message. Caitlin, how to not. There we go. All right, let's get started. Let's dive into it. So we got a couple quick things. You guys are slowly but surely making me a better teacher. So I have given up the Apple Keynotes, and we are now using Google Slides. So you can follow along with the link that's in chat, or it's also posted in the CIC Student C2 in Slack. If you want to, it'll be there. You can also just follow along with me on my screen. We do have some links though, so this would be a much easier way to click through and get to where we're going. Before we jump into this, I do want to just check in and see how did the homework go from last week? Is everybody feeling like they're all caught up? Like anybody have any questions from last week? trying to kind of put the bow on last week, and now we're going to move on to Module 10. So if anybody has anything they want to share or questions they want to ask about Module 9, now's the time. Cool, Brio. Yeah, let me know if you run into any problems getting Cypress up in your capstone. I'd be more than happy to help. I'm glad to hear that you like Cypress. It's definitely was much more useful, I guess, this last week than perhaps Jest was.
Hey Nathan,
Hey, Shaw.
this is Shah. Oh, thanks. So I did a few tests with Cypress. I mean, I could troubleshoot, even turn stuff on and off. That was great. I mean, one thing I noticed is that it gives you debugging easier, I think, easier with Cypress because it's kind of very user-friendly. And also the messages are displayed, you can easily understand it, relatively easily. But I understand just, but still, I think I need to do some practice with that. I mean, it's kind of a little bit confusing. I get the concept, but still, no, yeah. When it comes to application, applying it, that's where I struggle.
I'm glad to hear that you like Cypress. I know I've shared a whole bunch about Jest and why I like Jest, but just so you know, what could happen for some of you is when you go to interview and get your full-time job offers, you'll probably walk into a code base that already has unit tests set up, either with Jest or Chai or any of these popular JavaScript frameworks. My hope isn't necessarily that you would implement that all from scratch, but rather when you go to a company and they have those tests already written, you'd look at them and go, oh, I see what this is doing, or I see how they're using it here. Chances are that you're probably not going to have to come up with them from scratch. If all you walk away from with last week, with Jest at least, all you walk away with is, I see those tests and I know what's going on there, and I have a foundation to build off of, then you learned all you needed to about Jest last week.
Thanks.
And if they ask me to teach JavaScript testing again next year, I will 100% start with Cypress. And then if time is permitted, go with Jest. Awesome. Fubilia, if you need any help running those tests, just let me know and I'd be more than happy to take a look. Okay.
I had a problem getting the Cypress test to work on my capstone. I couldn't get it to click where I wanted it to click because it said the element is being covered by another element and I identified which one. I don't know if you just want to wait and look at my homework and get back to me on that. Or... Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be a tricky one, but we'll definitely take a look.
Nathan, I have a question along the same lines as Kyle's question, because I got a message saying that it couldn't click the button because it wasn't in one of 6 areas. You know how you do the right, left, top, bottom, center? It told me that. So I ended up just picking a different button for it to click. But and I think I made a notation in my homework. So yeah, if you can make a response. And then that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it. Shaw's saying that there's a way to force and bypass it.
I did that too, but it skipped some of the tests, right? So that's why I was concerned about doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me take a look at the homework. Just so you guys know, all the homework for Module 9, I'm probably going to get done with it probably on Wednesday. It's going to take me a little while. So if you've still got refinements to make or you're still waiting to send it in, please just send it in. I'd be more than happy to take it up till probably Wednesday when I finish.
Hi, Nathan. This show.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed with Cypress, if you have an uncut error, that this will not pass. So you have to dot in and then try choose something to cut the error. So the option to bypass that is to go to Cypress settings and setting folder. I don't know exactly. Index.js. There is an option Cypress on. Just turn that off. It's true, make it false, or vice versa should work.
Okay.
Thanks.
So going forward, the homework is really not going to be just derivative practices. The homework for module 10, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building on our capstone. You know, you guys are weeks away from finishing up the, at least with the modules. I'm not sure the timeline for when the modules end and then when graduation starts in the last weeks of prepping the capstones. But you guys are close to the end, and we're not really going to be doing, starting here with module 10, we're not going to be doing derivative contrived sorts of homework anymore. We're going to be beefing up the capstone. So every homework that we do is going to be towards something related to your capstone. So I want, starting with this module 10 and also the stuff from last week, if you guys run into anything with your homework with your capstone, and I'm sure there will be because you guys are all doing such different kinds of capstones. If you guys ever run into anything and go, I have no idea how to get my capstone to do this thing for the homework, please feel free to reach out. And I'd love nothing more than to take a look at your capstone and help with the homework. But right now, from this point forward, the homework is for you to level up your capstone and get it to a point where, well, we'll dig into that today. We'll talk a bit about what we're doing with our capstone this week. All right. And this is, I swear, this is the last thing before we jump into the slides, so we actually get down to what we're here to do tonight. But I just want everyone to take a minute and just a deep breath, because again, the stress level for these next couple of weeks should seriously come down, because we're at the point where we're refining our capstone. We're adding things to it, smallish sorts of things to it to make it better. The modules where, you know, you're learning completely new technologies and new techniques and all of that sort of stuff are kind of past us. We're at the point now where we're starting to refine the capstone. So just everyone take a deep breath. You've come a long ways. And with that, let's go ahead and dig into Module 10, Devops. So I've worked at 4 different companies, and of those 4 companies, I've done DevOps at 2 of them. If you asked any of the folks that I worked at those companies what they thought DevOps was, if you went and asked any of the people that I worked with, they would tell you something different. DevOps is a very overloaded term. It's also been kind of changed over time. There's a new fad called DevSecOps, DevOps. There's all sorts of meaning to it. In the context of what we're going to look at, though, it really boils down to DevOps being applied such that we can get our code in front of customers. So taking what's on our MacBooks, getting it in front of customers, because if your capstone is selling something, whether it's your online presence, you're trying to sell some of your photography, or you're selling goods, it does no good for it to be on your MacBook. It needs to be in front of customers. And so DevOps is the practice, the additional skills we pick up along our way to deploy our code in front of people. Back in the olden days, what used to happen is software developers would kind of live in their own silo, and they would just work on their code on their laptops. And when they got done building something, there would be a completely separate department, an IT department, an ops department. There would be a separate function in the company where you as a developer would get done making something, you'd package it up as a zip file or as a container or something. You'd package it up and you'd throw it over the wall. You'd say, hey, IT team, here's my thing. Please go and deploy it. Get it in front of customers. DevOps is about making all of us responsible for this deployment. So when you go to a company, you don't necessarily need to wait for someone else to help you, or you don't need to rely on another team in order to get your capstone or your code into production. So DevOps is this practice that we engage in as software developers in order to get our code in front of customers. And here's the example. So I'm sure you guys are used to this example by now, but Nathan's Web Store. So this is the deployed version of that same homework that you all have seen, where you can add some stuff to a cart and hit calculate total. You guys did a sales tax homework on this. But take a look at the URL. So it's not localhost, so it's not sitting on my Mac. It has HTTPS, so it's actually running with an SSL certificate. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next module. But this is, go ahead.
Can we access that, like this website right now?
Totally, yeah. Here's the link. So this is a Create React app, and it's deployed on the internet. I know a couple of you have already worked with deploying, so you'll have to humor me during this module and go through some of that again, but hopefully what I'm showing you is going to be a nicer way of deploying your capstone. So module 10, our complete focus for this week is getting our code in front of customers. Okay. So how we're going to do that? We're going to talk about a website called Heroku. And today we're really focused on intro to Heroku, getting set up with Heroku, and we're going to deploy our front end. Tomorrow we're going to talk about deploying the back end for the folks that do have a back end. Quick check in chat. Can I get a yes or a no from folks if they have a back end for their website, for their capstone? So for the folks that said no, are you planning on doing a server for your capstone? Okay. So for the folks that don't know or don't plan on having a backend, you'll just have to entertain me tomorrow because we're going to talk about deploying the backend anyways. Then we're going to talk about GitHub Actions, which is a way to automate some of the stuff that I'm going to show you tonight. We'll dig into automating and making some of this stuff a little bit easier after we've got a firm grasp on how to do things manually, so how to work with Heroku directly. And then if time allows, and everybody's capstones are good, we've got everybody deployed, everybody that has a backend that wants to deploy a backend, as long as we have all that stuff done, I would love to share some bonus material with you guys about just DevOps in general, things to consider when you're deploying. But we're going to focus on Heroku and GitHub Actions, and if we have time, we'll go into some bonus material. So does that sound good to everybody? Anybody have questions thus far?
I did have a question. I was able to deploy my front and continue working on it. Can you do the same thing in the back?
Deploy your front and continue to work on it, as in you're able to deploy your front end code and make changes live to where it's deployed?
Yeah, like I was able to deploy and I can go back and edit the code and just, run another deploy command to get it.
Yes.
Up. And I'm just wondering if you can do the same with the back. You can?
Oh,
okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. So we talked a little bit about the why. We can't just run our code from our laptops. Can folks think of reasons why that would not be a good idea? I mean, it's a great idea. To be clear, it's a great idea for development, but I'm talking about when you're ready to have customers visit.
Your computer can possibly like turn off, or maybe, yeah, like they said, with the like memory or whatever. Because of the server, like you're sending a bunch of requests, and then your computer has to, put resources on there. I don't know, maybe like
I thought too, can't you turn your computer into a server? Didn't somebody in class ask about doing that? So if you had the right kind of setup, you could do it, right?
Sure could. Yeah, these are all really good reasons. Spyware and security are probably the first two things I could think of. How much software have you guys, since you got your MacBook, how much software have you installed on your MacBook? How many brew installs, how many DMGs have you downloaded in order to think of all of the software that's exposed on your laptop right now that may have opened some ports, may have installed some libraries you didn't know about? I'm not saying that your MacBook is just completely infested at this point, but I am saying that that's not secure. You wouldn't want to necessarily expose that directly to the internet for folks to be able to reach. Memory is another really good one. For example, if your Mac is serving your website and you open up, I don't know, a YouTube video, or you're watching something and all of a sudden you're eating up all your RAM, your website's gonna slow down to a crawl. But another really good reason is what Kyle is bringing up. No one can access it. So when you serve your website, you're serving it from a certain address. And if that address is changing, say you're working at home one day, or you're going to work at the library, or you go to work at a coffee shop, every time you move around, that's going to change where your server lives and what network it's joining. So you need something that's static, someplace off in the cloud that will hold on to your server and just stay there, be secure, always be on. Nobody running the risk of accidentally grabbing their server and closing the lid, and all of a sudden the website can't be reached anymore. So these are all really good reasons why it wouldn't be a great idea to deploy. Now, folks, you're more than welcome to run your own servers. In fact, I run a number of servers at my house, but I don't necessarily put those out on the greater internet because of the security concern. Once you expose something to the internet, then you are opening yourself to a big bag of worms. So the purpose of this module is to show you how to safely deploy your capstone, and let's keep going. So when you're talking about deploying your software somewhere, have folks heard of these platforms before? GCP, Google Cloud Platform, Amazon Web Services. So these are the things I work with every single day. I'm more of the Amazon side, but I've also done a lot with GCP. So these companies, they're huge. They have data centers, like full-on warehouses, racks and racks of servers. And all of these folks here are more than happy to rent you out some space in their data centers. So you can rent one of their servers and from it serve your capstone. And these guys are excellent. They have hardened, secure servers. They have encryption. They have all sorts of stuff. I mean, medical records get stored on some of these at some of these companies. So they have some of the best security in the world. What we're going to be talking about is Heroku. But a lot of what I show you with Heroku will translate to whatever company you work at, because I'll tell you, when you get your job offer, no two job offers are going to have the same two, what is the word for it? no two companies are going to use the same cloud provider, and that's what all these companies are. They just rent out servers. So when you get your offer, who knows what it's going to be? It might be GCP, it might be AWS, it could be Heroku or DigitalOcean. As in terms of equality here, Heroku is definitely more developer friendly. So is DigitalOcean to a certain extent. AWS and GCP, I mean, I'll show you here in a second. They are very enterprisey. So that means they have the full gamut of features, like in terms of what things you can do on each of these platforms. In fact, with AWS, you can go online and check out what kind of servers they'll rent you. And if you want a 448 core machine with 6,100 gigabytes of RAM, you can rent one from AWS. What are folks running on their MacBooks? 4 cores, 8 cores? Yeah, you can get yourself 448 cores. Think how fast your capstone will run it would be massive overkill. And also, this is $54.60 an hour. That's $40,000 a month. So you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. With this. Yeah, Caitlin, I would echo that sentiment 100%. AWS, when I was putting this stuff together, I thought that I would take you guys on a guided tour of AWS just because that's where I work every day. It's a beast. It's complicated. So we're gonna skip a lot of the complicated stuff, and we're gonna talk about something a bit more straightforward, Heroku. So Heroku is powered behind the scenes. I don't think Heroku runs their own data centers. I think they just resell AWS or GCP or DigitalOcean behind the scenes. I may be wrong on that. But Heroku is what we're going to take a look at. So our goal is to get our capstone in front of customers. And the way we're going to do that, I'm going to have all of you go ahead and Google Heroku or punch this URL directly into your browser. We all need to sign up for Heroku accounts. So please go and do that. I don't think they'll ask you for a credit card. I'll just sign out and show you guys what it looks like. So the sign up page here, I mean, just put whatever you want here for role in primary development language. If anybody has any problems signing up for an account, let me know. After you've signed up for an account, go ahead and install the Heroku CLI. I think after you sign up, the next thing it shows you is how to install the CLI. If it doesn't, there's a link right here, and we'll go through that. Next, the gist of installing the Heroku CLI is this brew command right here. So tapping the Heroku keg and then installing Heroku. So sign up, get yourself a Heroku account, and then get into your terminal and install the Heroku CLI.
What should the primary deployment language should be? Like Node.js, or should it be something else?
Node.js works. I think it's going to try to give you like a little tutorial, but we're going to skip right through that.
Hey Nathan, it's Latonia. So once we're in, after we confirm with our email and stuff, just skip the Heroku site and just go to the terminal with what you have up, or should I be looking for something in here?
You can keep the Heroku window open, but go ahead and jump into the slides if you want to do it that way, or I have it up on my screen. This is the command to install the Heroku CLI. Then if you could give me a thumbs up in chat once you've installed the Heroku CLI, and I will know when we're all ready to move on. You don't need to install Heroku in a specific spot. It's just going to install it for your entire computer. Brew is for the entire computer, not as opposed to like a npm package which you install to a specific folder. Thumbs up from Shaw. For the folks that have seen this and sign before in the past, this just joins two commands together. So you could also in the terminal type in brew tap Heroku brew. And then on the next line, you could also type in brew install Heroku. These are actually two commands that and sign just joins them together and runs it as one big command. Yeah. It's Ariel. This is the same homebrew that we used in the beginning. For some reason, when you go and install something, Brew takes the opportunity to update everything. So just stick with it. It should get through the end and install Heroku.
So what exactly does the first part mean? Brew tap Heroku / brew.
So there's when you're using Brew, there are some things that Brew can install for you. So like when you installed npm and node, I think you just said brew install and then whatever the name is. There's some packages that don't come with brew. And to do that, you have to go and access their package registry. You have to access their stuff before Brew knows where to look to find Heroku. You usually see this brew tap step for smaller sorts of binaries that aren't as popular because they won't be in the Brew default repository. Susan, it's up to you if you want to set up the Heroku autocomplete. Brandy, what do you mean by the recent Google crash? Oh, are you talking about that password deal? Oh, I read about that. Somehow that got through code review and like all of the passwords were like it wasn't being checked anymore. That was crazy.
Yeah, instead of 2 ampersands, it was 1, and it just failed everything.
That's crazy. Okay, once everybody is at this point, if you are still working on this, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next step. Still waiting. Okay, no worries. For the folks that are still waiting on it to install in the terminal, let's go ahead and open up Heroku. So when you open up Heroku and you're signed in, it should give you the ability to create an app. And we're going to create an app for our home, for the exercise. The homework will be to create an app for your capstone. But let me jump to the dashboard. I'm just going to log in really quick. Okay. So when you get to the dashboard, it should be empty. Mine has a couple things in here. When you get to the dashboard, there's this new icon over here. Go ahead and click on that and hit create new app. And then in the create new app box, go ahead and put your name and then a dash and then call it web-store. And then hit create app. So kind of jumping around a little bit, but just for the folks that are still waiting on Brew to finish, we're just going to go ahead and jump to this next step.
Okay, so we're trying this with your web store tonight instead of our capstones. Is that?
Yeah, for the demo I'm going to show you, I'm going to walk you all through deploying a copy of the web storm, or sorry, the web store. And then for the homework, you guys will come back in, create another app, deploy your apps, your capstone through that.
Cool, thanks.
And just so you know, the create new app, this just means creating a new website or creating a new server for your code to live on. App is kind of vague and ambiguous, but behind the scenes, what we're doing is we're creating a spot. We're going to rent out a server to run our code on. That's a great point, Kyle. For the capstone, you'll want to come back through here, and I'll throw those in the instructions on Google Classroom. You'll want to come through here and create an app name for your capstone.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what I wanted to call it, and I didn't know if I just want to put something in there without thinking about it. So, thanks.
Yeah, you just so you know, yes, you can put something in here and not give it much thought, because when you go and buy the domain name for your capstone, that will be the pretty presentable URL. You can call this app whatever you want, but I would suggest putting either your name, or if you were working for a company, you'd put your business name in there at the beginning, because Heroku expects every app to be unique. So if I took something called like app, it's going to say it's not available, because of course somebody's created a quote unquote app in Heroku. So a good way to just come up with something random or unique is just to put your name.
So you can't change this though after you name it.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It could be one of those like call support and ask them.
Right.
Okay, so after you've created an app, you should get this app dashboard, which has a bunch of stuff, and we'll dig into that later. But this is your dashboard for your app. So once we get it running, this is going to be the back end, the admin panel for your app. Yes, you are more than welcome to minimize your terminal. If you minimize it instead of closing it, yeah, it'll keep running in the background.
And you clicked create app, not add to pipeline, right? I missed it.
Yes, just create app. There's a whole pipeline deal. We'll get into that later. You can rename the app. Cool. Is it under settings? Oh, you can. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so is everybody at the point where who needs more time with the installation of the Heroku CLI? Is anybody having any problems getting to where we're at? You should have the Heroku CLI installed. You should have a Heroku account, and you should have an app created on Heroku at this point. All set, sweet. Anybody's having any problems, let me know, because I don't want to, we're going to keep building off of this, so I don't want anybody to get left behind here.
I just want to double check. This is Latonia. The CLI and the install were all in the same command because we had the and, right? I didn't have to do anything separate.
No,
Okay.
you didn't. Yeah, but and is just to shorten
Great,
commands
thank
for
you.
copy and paste. Brandy, good. Susan, good. Mel, Fabelia, good. Ariel, good. Sarah, good. Okay. Is Mel, is that just the stuff it was spitting out at the end? Yeah, you should be good. And here's how we'll test if everyone's installed the Heroku CLI correctly. So go ahead and in your terminal, I'm just going to CD to my home. In your terminal, just say Heroku login. Now it's going to ask you if you want to open up the browser, just hit enter. And it should open up a link in the browser. Just punch login. And if you go back in the terminal, it will say logged in as your email. What this is doing is it's connecting your terminal with credentials to talk to Heroku. So you've downloaded the CLI, but now you've downloaded a credential, this deal right here. So you can actually interact with Heroku. And we're going to use the Heroku CLI to do our deploys.
I'm sorry, Nathan, what was that command in? Was it just login Heroku?
Heroku login.
Heroku.
If your CLI was installed, this should just be smooth sailing. If you run into an issue, just let me know. Okay, so we've done all of that. We've done the brew tap. We've installed Heroku. We've done the Heroku login. Now our terminal is connected with Heroku. All right. We're going to do our first deploy. Again, for the homework, this is going to be for your capstone. So when you get to the homework to deploy your capstone, you'll need to do a little bit of backpedaling, taking a look at the slides or watching the video, and performing this same set of actions for your capstone. We're going to do it on one of my, well, Nathan's capstone, the Nathan's web store. So in your terminal, go to somewhere, anywhere on your Mac. I'm going to do it up at the home folder. You can do this anywhere you feel like doing it. But what we're going to do is we're going to download this code here in Nathan's web store, and we're going to deploy this to Heroku. So go ahead and get your terminal out.
So it's going to download
then-
wherever we choose, wherever we're logged in. Okay. Can I leave
Yep.
myself logged in? I'm in my capstone right now, my capstone folder. Can I open like a second terminal? Do I have to log in again to download it somewhere else other than into my capstone?
Don't need to log in. You can perform the login from anywhere, and it's going
Okay.
to stick around.
Okay, thanks. I think I'll open
That
it.
is That's a good point. Wherever you are in your terminal. So if you type in pwd, it's going to print out where you are. Wherever you are, we're about to download a folder, and it's going to put it where you're at in the terminal. So you could do something like cd tilde to go to your home folder, or just cd. So I'm going to do mine inside of my users Nathan Evans folder. You can do it if you have a workspaces or a work folder. Feel free to put it anywhere you want. But once you are at that place that you're ready to do this download, so we're going to follow the instructions here on the slide, and we're going to clone down this repo. So I'm going to go back into my terminal, and I'm going to clone down Nathan's web store. So you guys have been working with Git a little bit. This week, we're going to have to work a little bit more with Git because Heroku, yeah, I can paste the link. Here it is. Thank you, Caitlin. We're going to have to work a little bit more closely with Git because Heroku uses Git in order to do deploys.
Actually, that L, I wrote an L instead of a 1. I'll retype it.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
No, my bad. It was like, I don't know, habit. My brain was spelling a word. It's not a word.
Now, if we're using our own capstone, this is Dominique. Do we copy our own GitHub repo, or?
If you were doing it in your own capstone, you would just go into your own repo. You wouldn't need to re-clone it down.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Nathan?
Yep.
This is Susan. Mine says the authenticity of host github.com can't be established, blah, blah, blah. It says, are you sure you want to continue? Can I say yes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that made the repo download?
I think so. It
Cool.
is. It just went back. It just went back to the, the line with the cursor. No, permission denied.
Do you want to share your screen really quick? Because it sounds like Latonia's getting the same.
Sure.
Same
Hold
issue.
on. I will.
Permission denied public key. Okay. How have you been doing Git clones previously? How have you been working with Git? Have you been using that UI tool?
What?
So how have you been using Git before? Have you been using like the Kraken or the GitHub desktop thing?
Oh yeah, I have I use GitHub Desktop.
Okay, so go into GitHub Desktop. Okay. When you got set up with GitHub Desktop, I know this is gonna sound weird, but did it make you generate an SSH key?
I do not remember.
Okay, so go to into your terminal and do an ls on ls.space tilde /.ssh and hit enter. Okay, so we don't have a SSH key for you. Is anybody else running into this problem cloning down? Okay, let's do one thing
I got
really
the
quick.
same message. I just typed what you had Susan type and same thing.
Okay, let's do one change for you folks that are hitting an issue here. Let's, instead of Git cloning with the SSH URL, we're gonna clone with this. So typing it into Slack chat, try this instead.
Nathan, I'm pretty sure the only repo they've cloned is the classroom repo in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do.
Then if they Nice. Cool.
So we're good now?
All good. Yep. Is everybody
Thanks,
else?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, we're just doing what you just put into the chat. Just put that in the
It
terminal.
just, and I'll also run that on my machine. So it's a git clone this HTTPS. Ariel, do you want to share your screen really quick?
I'm actually on two
Can you?
systems right now, but it's just telling me it couldn't read from the remote repository and it timed out again. So I'm not sure if I'm adding something wrong somewhere. I've been using your links.
You've been using that exact git clone HTTPS.
Yes, that's the one I just did. And it said, make sure I have correct access rights and the repository exists. So maybe there's a step I missed somewhere. I'll check the slides again. I'm not sure what happened.
You definitely didn't miss one. And this is a public repo, so there's no access permissions or anything like that. I'm just going to update that link in the slides. Okay, Ariel, let's talk. Is anybody else having problems cloning down this?
I got the same error as Ariel.
Okay,
If it is an
can
error,
you
it
share your
doesn't
screen?
look like one on my end, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
Do you mind sharing your screen?
Sure, hold on. This is what I'm getting.
Oh, that's not an error. That's everything's good.
Oh, okay. So yeah, then I'm good then.
Ariel, was that the same error? Do you have a folder called Nathan's Web Store?
No, and it keeps just telling me there's no such file or directory.
Okay.
So that's why I'm thinking it's on my end. I can switch computers and do it that way if that's easier. Or you guys can keep going and I can catch up tomorrow. It's either way.
Rael, did you have the same problem you said? Or was it like Dominique's?
No, mine said command not found permission. But I'm on a different device too. I do class on the tablet, so.
Sorry.
Okay, let's come back and we'll figure out what's going on with your machines. Maybe we'll just do that at the end of class today and make sure that everybody's all caught up. Because after this, it's pretty straightforward to make a deploy to Heroku. So for the folks that were able to clone down, let's follow the next remaining steps here. So CD into the folder. So after you clone a repo, it's going to clone down what's on GitHub and it's going to put it as a folder on your hard drive. So CD into that folder, Nathan's Web Store.
Nathan, are you supposed to share yours? Are you planning to share? Or was that on purpose? Sorry. I can't get words out today. Sorry.
No, thank you. I'm sitting here and moving my mouse and nobody's seeing it.
There you go.
So after you've CD'd into Nathan's Web Store, the next command we're going to run is this Heroku git remote -a. It takes an argument after the -a. That's the name of the app that you created on Heroku. So in my case, mine's called Nathan Web Store. So I'm going to do Heroku git remote -a Nathan Web Store.
Okay, so the little carrots or whatever they're called, you omit those. You have like quotes or whatever around app name.
Yes, omit this part right here. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put in the name of whatever you called yours.
Right, without the little quotes around it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep, without the carrots. Yeah. You should get a message that says something like set git remote Heroku to blah, 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 blah.
And what's the dash A? Is that for ad or something?
It's for app, just a Heroku flag.
Just curious.
Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to run this Heroku build packs set. All of this we're going to run in, and this is a special build pack that Heroku provides. Heroku does these things called build packs. They're just scripts that Heroku writes for folks that are going to rent some of their servers, and they write these because it makes setting up your Create React app and deploying it, it automates all of it for you. So we're going to use one of the build packs they provide. This is just the build pack for the Create React app.
I got an error.
Installing the build pack?
No, doing the Heroku get remote -A.
Were you running that from within the Nathan's web store? You are running it. Is anybody able to add the get remote here?
Oh, yeah. So sorry, I wasn't able to get it.
Do you want to share your screen and show us where you're
Yeah,
at?
I was trying, but it says you cannot share screen while the other participant is sharing.
There we go.
I don't know. I accidentally muted myself. I thought I was talking the entire time. Okay. So it's right here. I got forbidden. Maybe I put the wrong thing down.
Oh, so for the app, don't use my app name, Nathan Web Store. Use the app that you created on Heroku. So go to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Thank you.
No, it's all good. Yeah, just make sure you throw your app name in there, and that will hopefully clear things up for you.
Wait. So were we all not able to connect because we were trying to connect your particular app and not ours instead? Is that what just happened?
I think this is the only instance where you guys have seen my app name. So I don't think that would have prevented you, Ariel, from downloading the repo.
Okay, I thought my brain just fully stopped today. That's fine. Then I'll continue on. Thank you.
So you should be able to add the remote, and then you should be able to install the build pack. If anybody else is go ahead.
So when we do the initial steps, instead of the Nathan Web Store, do we just do like our app's name instead of like basically everything that says Nathan's Web Store, we omit that and replace it with our name, like for the app that we did on Roku.
Yep. So when you went in here to the dashboard and created an app, that's what you want to be using. Yep.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. Okay.
But wait, Nathan, wouldn't we still need to use the file name that we downloaded was Nathan's Web Store? We have to
keep the file name the same. The only step where you need to put your app name in for Heroku is here, where you're linking up the code you just downloaded from my Git repository. You need to link my code to your Heroku app, and that's done here on this step right here. That's the only place that you should not put Nathan Web Store in.
Okay, thanks.
Because everything is like a name dash something else, but yeah, like you're still using his Git code. You're just, when you're saying Heroku Git remote, you're connecting the Heroku app that you made to his Git code that you downloaded on your computer.
Right, but I'm just saying not everything should be the name of the app we created in Heroku, like changing directories to Nathan's Web Store, not Brielle's Web Store.
Yeah, if you called the folder.
So it's not everything.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Oh, Jahil, are you following along by doing this with your capstone?
I mean, I'm just trying to yeah, kind of. I mean, that's homework, right?
Nice.
Maybe I shouldn't.
Nice.
I don't know.
No. Like, we're just doing this for an example. Like, if you guys want to be doing on this on your
No, no,
capstone, like, you
yeah,
would
no, my
definitely
fault.
be killing
I'll
two
just,
birds with one stone. Very clever, guys. Yeah, by all means, feel free to be just doing this with your capstone and getting your homework done in class. I was going to ask everybody to show me my web store pushed up to all your different apps, but yeah. So for the folks that are here, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when we're doing this with our capstone, we don't need to clone anything though, right? Because we already have the
Right.
code
You should. Yeah, you'll already have the clone set up. So if you're doing this for your capstone, you guys are. Anyways, if you guys are doing this for your capstone, you've already done the brew install. You've already done the login. You don't need to do a git clone because it's your capstone. You don't have to CD. You'll probably have CD'd into your folder. The only thing that you need to do for your capstone really is set up the remote. And if you're using Create React App, install the build pack for it. Once you are at this point, like Dominique is pointing out, you would run git push Heroku main. And what that's doing is it's pushing the code in that repo up to your app. So it's creating a release. It's actually going to deploy this to your app. Once it does
So
that,
I'm
it's
sorry,
gonna
is that what we're doing now?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I just did Heroku Git remote, but I don't have a React app, so I skipped the last line on your slide there.
Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a Create React app, we're going to need to work on that this week before you can do the homework. I have instructions for what I'm showing you today is how to deploy a Create React app. If you're not deploying a Create React app, I'm going to either give you instructions later to just deploy whatever you have, or I'm going to see if I can help you get it into a Create React app.
Okay, so but for our purposes tonight, because we are using your stuff, I will be doing this last line.
Yeah. If you're following along with me and not doing it on your capstone,
yeah.
then if you're doing it on my code, add the build pack, and this is what's going to take care of most of the deployment magic for us.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the Heroku dash push something thing? I can't.
So that is on the next. Oops.
Next slide. Okay. Yeah.
Here we go. Git push Heroku main. I included these two steps here, git commit and git push origin main. Ignore those. Don't even try to run those. Just git push Heroku main.
I was just going to ask if those for editing after you've done the initial deployment.
Yeah, most of what you're going to see is you're going to make changes to your capstone and you're going to want to release those. So you would make a commit and then you would push that up. Since we're not really changing Nathan's web store, we're just going to deploy what we've got up there. And it's going to take a minute because Heroku has to accept all the files. It's going to do its own npm install on those servers. It does a whole lot of magic behind the scenes. But once it's done, it should say something at the very end like released something deployed to Heroku. npm run deploy. I don't know. Does Create React app come with something for doing deploys?
That's the one I've been pretty much with me and Max when we finally put React and whatever on my capstone. That's the one I've been using to actually like make my website live.
Where are you deploying to?
My website. I actually have a address.
But where, like, what is the thing that's serving your website.
Are you using like the Namecheap thing or something that we did initially?
That's
Or-
the one.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Dope.
so yeah, Heroku's going to
GitHub.
provide you with. Go ahead.
GitHub, we're using GitHub. We all made web addresses for ourselves at the toward the beginning of the program through GitHub. So it's probably through GitHub. And then we use Namecheap to get the domain name.
Can I get some yes, nos in chat? Have all of you bought domain names? Okay. Everybody's got a domain name. Dang. Okay, cool. So we're going to hook up your domain names to Heroku if you want. I mean, if you guys really love using the Namecheap web hosting, by all means, feel free to keep using it. Especially if you're running a backend, you're going to need a place to deploy your backend to, and I don't think Namecheap would accept a Node.js app. Okay. Once you've run the git push Heroku main, it should spit out a really big log here. And then at the end said deployed to Heroku. If you click on that link, you should see your own copy of Nathan's amazing web store. Now, if this was your capstone, I'm not sure if you'll be able to do the same instructions as me. Let me show you really quick what you would do to make a new deploy. So let's say you're working on your capstone and you want to change something about it. So like, I don't like the amazing part. I just want it to be Nathan's web store. So if you're working on your capstone and you want to make changes and you want to do another deploy, I'm going to go into app.js. I'm going to drop the amazing part, save. If you want to make another deploy, you need to first create a commit. I'm not sure, have you guys talked much about making commits with Git? Has anybody covered what a commit is?
I think commit is kind of like how, like, I don't know, when we're pushing code or either like editing code or something like that, we commit to it. So we send the data through it and then, it's permanent or something like that. So it updates the whole entire repo or whatever. I just got it, my fault. I got an error, but I don't want to like derail this. But yeah, that's I think that's what commit is.
Okay, let me talk a little bit about making a deploy and then we'll jump on that error. So a commit is an immutable piece of data. So when you commit something, you're committing your changes that you've made in that repo. So when you commit, you're bundling your changes and you're saving it on your local computer. It doesn't actually get pushed up to your repo on GitHub. It's just living on your computer. So when you want to deploy something to Heroku, you need to push the changes up to Heroku. And the way that we do that is by doing a git commit with the flags -am. We say changing from amazing to just regular. And that creates a commit if you guys have seen a commit before. After you create the commit, then you can call git push Heroku main again. And that will push up your change to Heroku. So who else is getting an error? Method not allowed. What are you getting the method not allowed on?
I don't know. Can I share my screen? Oh, once we do the push,
yeah.
something. Okay, I'll show you what I'm experiencing. Is it right here? Yeah. So like once everything was pushed or whatever, I copied the link.
Not that link.
Oh, not this link.
The one right above it, released v3, https grammargoblins.heroku, that one.
Oh, Very nice. Let me see if that.
So after you deploy, you're going to get a
Oh,
yeah.
all right.
After you deploy, you're going to get a address on Heroku. That's where your app is going to get deployed to.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Dominique, were you able to find the URL?
I'm going through it right now. Hold on. Let's see. Nope. Yep. It works. Yeah. It just had the same error. So it's working now.
Cool. Yep. The last thing that it spits out, or second to last, this down here is a Git message, but the second to last URL it spits out should be yourappname.herokuapp.com. So you get a free spot on Heroku.
Nathan, I have a question about some of the other commands. So I did get it working, but it didn't I saw you did the subl package JSON.
Oh.
And it command not found. And then also you did the S, I assume, for save, and it was command not found.
Yeah, so I use a text editor called Sublime. And when you install Sublime, it comes with this little command. I was trying to go quick so nobody would notice that. You don't need to run subl on your Mac at all. Dominic had mentioned something about npm deploy being a thing. So I wanted to go look at the package.json and see if it had anything in there about deploys. I kind of rushed through this, and I want to make sure everybody understands when you're working on your capstone, you can deploy it using the instructions I showed you. After you've deployed it, if you want to make changes to it, you're going to need to use the git commit command. And git commit just packages up what you have into a nice little bundle. The push command takes your commits and pushes it up. So I'll do that one more time. I'm going to change it from, if we look, so Nathan's web store, I'm going to change it to, I'm going to go into my code and change something. So instead of Nathan's web store, it's Nathan's cheap web store. So now I've got some changes on my computer. I want to get them pushed up to Heroku. So in order to do that, you say git commit -am. The A means everything that you've changed with Git. You can say, I only want to send some of these things. The -A means all. In most cases, you'll want to just send everything with Git, everything when you're doing a commit. So that's what the -A means. The M means that you're going to specify a message. And this is where if you go to GitHub and you see all the little messages on the commits where it has this nice long description, that's what those messages are. So that message is just for you. So you kind of write and explain what it is that you've changed, what that commit represents. So for my commit message, I'm going to say updated the title to be cheap. So that creates a commit, but it's still on my computer. It's not going anywhere. In order to get that up to Heroku, we then do a git push Heroku main, which kicks off the deploy process. VS Code asks, yeah. If you're using an IDE for making your commits, yeah, it'll ask you for a message. And Susan's good, cool.
So if you were running that, is that going to push all your changes if you had multiple projects or whatever? So how would you make it, like if you were working on two different things and you only wanted to do this one, for example?
Yeah, have two Git repos. That would be my answer. Have two folders for both of your things. Like if you've got a front end and a back end, if folks have those in one Git repo, this is going to be really hard. So try to split out your front end and your back end into two GitHub repos. In fact, I don't think we're going to even cover how to deploy multiple projects from within the same repo. If you have a scenario like that, let me know and I'll help you break that up. Okay, and you can see it's released. Now we can go and view it changes, and if I refresh, it should say Nathan's cheap web store. Guys, I'm so sorry I haven't been watching the clock. We are long overdue for a break. So let's go ahead and take 10 minutes and meet back at 7:31.
So, in order for us to, I guess, deploy our capstone, we shouldn't like use, I guess, your GitHub hub or whatever information. I don't know how to describe it, but maybe like we shouldn't. Okay, let me go back to the terminal and then I'll like tell you what I mean.
Sure.
Okay, so when we make the physical file, when we copy the repo or whatever, and then we change our directory to Nathan's dash web store or something like that. Well, the app that we create on Heroku, once we, I guess, deploy it or whatever with our names, because if we do the same thing that you do, I mean, since it's not on our account, because we're logged into our accounts, so that's the reason why we can't access what you have. That's why we had the method, I think, not found or whatever. And once we do the copy, right? We copy repo, and then we go to their folder. Then we use the app's name just to, you know. No. Oh, okay.
No, hold on, because we got to back up a step. You don't need to clone anything down for your capstone.
No.
You already have your capstone.
Right. Yeah. So like my thing was basically, yeah, that's what we don't have to do. So like we just need to access the folder that has the contents of our capstone.
Exactly.
And yeah, so like that's what I meant, because we like, I understand that we cannot use the same not endpoint, but basically reference that
app name.
Yeah, we can't use the same thing. But we logged in using the terminal, and then us logging in, we're able to, I guess, get a HTTP whatever based off of like what we put on for our app for the Heroku account.
Exactly.
And then we basically did CD and we changed into what folder you had. I mean, like we got from the repo clone. But if we want to actually launch our capstone, also like, you know, like, and also, you know, finish the homework, we just need to physically find our capstone, and then that's how we're able to deploy it. I mean, it's a similar steps, but you know, instead of like doing, so I'm just saying,
you're saying it all back to me correctly. I just don't want you to get confused by the app name on Heroku does not need to be the name of the folder.
Right, of course. It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be the exact. It can be named some random whatever, like I don't know. Like for my capstone or whatever, it's like Grammar Goblins. It could be Grammar Goblins 2, for example, whatever. It doesn't have to be exact. It's kind of like how like when we're doing the databases with Max, like he was saying, essentially we don't have to have the database like fully our name or whatever. It's just like I don't know. So I understand. It could be named whatever, blah blah. So yep.
Also, I think you uploaded my web store to your Grammar Goblins app.
I did.
If you want to,
I want to.
If you want to, you can trash that app if you want. But also, if you go and just deploy your actual Grammar Goblins to that app on Heroku, they'll just overwrite it and you'll be good.
Oh, dope. Even better. Okay. I thought I had
every time you run a deploy, it takes what is in the app, throws it away, and then re-uploads whatever. So if you want to keep using that app, it's not going to be a problem.
Oh, I see now. That's what you just did recently when you edited out your not edited out, but like when you edited your the title. So basically you just like threw away every single thing and then it replaced it with the new updated. All right, cool. So
when I hit refresh, it makes it look like it might have just updated like a small piece. Behind the scenes, it's scrapping everything and then it's re-uploading everything on top. So
all All right. Yeah. So like it could have
Good,
been.
good questions. I wish we had been saying this not on break because others probably need to hear that.
Oh, I mean,
And Latonia, I will totally go from start to finish what all
Okay.
the steps are.
I was gonna say
I
you're
just
kind
want-
of doing what he just did if you answer my question when everybody comes back.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Can do.
I mean, we can always use the live or whatever for YouTube and just hit playback. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll just tell people to do that.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know.
but
I'm
it
just not
takes
going
so
to answer you right now.
long.
Go look at it.
I had another question. So when I want to run this for I have a front end folder for my server on the back. Well, you know, my front end, and I have my back end folder. So I would go into that folder and then start following those steps. And then that way I won't have any issues because you talked about making sure they're separate repos. Is that making sense?
Mostly, we're going to use Heroku to deploy the backend as well, but the steps for the backend are slightly different, and we'll go over that tomorrow. Today is all about just deploying the front end.
Okay, so these are the steps for the front end, but I would go into my front end folder and follow the steps. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. Okay, I'll be right back. Hey, Ariel, are you here?
And Nathan, you hear me? This is Latonia.
Yep.
So one of my questions was my React app is now running through GitHub pages. I use the npm run deploy for that. I don't have to change that, right? I can just use this in conjunction with that, or do I have to do something special?
No, totally. Keep it.
It's all
If
set.
you're using GitHub pages, this is completely separate, so you can use both if you'd like.
Okay, so it's under my what Kyle mentioned earlier, my .dev site. That was the first one that we deployed, and then so GitHub is set up now, I guess, to automatically make it an extension of that. Does that make sense? So it has my LatoniaMatrice.dev, and then it does / and then it does whatever I deployed after that. which I like. I like that setup. So I'm all set. It's going to continue to be that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, anything you deploy to Heroku will be served by Heroku. So if you bundle up things like images, movies, anything you want users to be able to download, if you bundle all that up into your app, Heroku will serve all of that for you, just like it does for GitHub. So whatever you type into the URL bar, as long as it's in your app, it will get served by Heroku.
And it doesn't care about like the size. Like you won't get to a point where they're telling you need to pay.
Good question. We'll jump into that here in a second, because now that we're deployed, I want to do a quick tour of Heroku so you guys. I don't know. I'm more of an AWS guy and not Heroku. I don't really know what the limit for file size is, but you're going to test it, aren't you? Because you got, yeah.
And later this week, are we going to be covering, like, when you run npm start and it tells you about all the vulnerabilities in your app that you're supposed to get rid of before we deploy?
Oh, man. I don't know if I'll talk about it this week. I'll probably talk a little bit about it in the next module. If I don't talk about it in the next module, and hopefully the person after me will, because I think she's doing a whole security module.
I was just concerned about deploying it with all those in there. Like, what are the concerns with that?
Realistically, it depends what data is your app taking in. Is it taking in credit cards? Is it taking in email addresses?
I'm doing both, but I'm doing the credit cards through Gumroad, so I'm not really worried about that.
Oh, okay.
But I am doing emails. So what's the?
You're doing emails?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would want to be careful, and you definitely want to take a look at your. You definitely want to take a look. If you're collecting email, you really don't want folks' emails to get leaked by an insecure package. But it also kind of depends, because how much damage can your front end do? If your front end had malicious code, how much damage could it do? Because theoretically, your back end should prevent the front end from incurring too much damage. So there's a lot of moving pieces there. Told to meet with someone before you deploy, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you do want to wait until the security module, but I don't think any of that should stop you from deploying your capstones and testing them out. I think before you maybe share them with customers or post it on a website and open it to the flood, like that would probably be a good place to do it.
Nathan?
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Just so I'm clear, with setting up deploying our front end and our back end, do we create separate repositories or separate folders within the same repository?
Please create separate repositories. And if you'd like some help, I'd be more than happy to help you do that. But ideally we'd have two repositories for doing these deploys.
All right,
do you think that's going to be a problem? Do you have two folders in one repository?
No, I haven't gotten started with my backend, but I wanted to make sure I was clear on what you mentioned earlier.
Yep. Yes, please create another repo. Okay. So somebody brought up a good idea, which is right now we're kind of at the end. I want to do a quick little show and tell on Heroku, which will only take a minute, but we're really getting into the homework territory. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be here to answer them. But somebody asked me to go through the slides and just quickly reiterate what this will look like for the homework for actually deploying your capstone. the front end at least, not the back end just yet. So let's do that really quick. So if you go and take a look at the slides, for your capstone, you don't need to do either step 1 or step 2. So like going into and creating Heroku, you already got an account. The only thing that you will need to do is create a new app. Or you can reuse the one that we just made for mine for this exercise. It's up to you. I would suggest that you just create a new app and call it, your name / front end, or your name / and then whatever the product that you're building or the capstone you're building. The app name is totally up to you, but you will need to create one for your capstone. Okay, so that's really step 1. You don't need to do any of this. You've already done it. Do keep in mind though, Heroku will expire your credentials. I don't know what the interval is. I think it's like 30 days or maybe it's a week or something. So if you run into anything weird trying to deploy with Heroku, just run Heroku login again and it'll regenerate those credentials for you. You can run Heroku login as many times as you want from anywhere on your computer. That's just there for you to connect your terminal to Heroku. Shouldn't need to do this for the homework though. You guys just logged in. I don't think your creds will expire for quite some time. And then for connecting your repo to Heroku, you guys probably already have this done. So if you have your repo already set up for your front end, for your capstone, you'll just go to wherever your capstone is. From there, you will want to do these 2 things. You'll want to set the remote, so hook up your GitHub repo to be able to talk to Heroku. And of course, you'll plug in whatever the app name is you've created. And then you'll want to create or set that build pack for Create React App. Both of these things only ever need to be done once when you're wiring up a repo to work with Heroku. So you'll set the remote, you'll set the build pack. If you don't, if you're not using a Create React App, talk to me and let's figure out how to get your deploys to work. Okay, and then you can jump straight to pushing to Heroku. If you have some changes that you want to deploy, don't forget to do a commit first, bundle those up, and then push those up to Heroku. That's it. Clear as mud. Anybody got? If your repo doesn't use the main branch, does anybody know does anybody have a repo where they're using master or trunk? Never heard of that. Does anybody have? Can you guys throw some of your capstone GitHub URLs into chat?
In the lower
Folks have
left-hand
those?
corner of VS Code, it says master on my capstone folder.
If yours says master, instead of saying git push Heroku main, you'll want to switch that for master. Same for here. Sorry. You'll want to switch that from main to master. Some folks, when they create their repo, the default branch or the default deal is called master. Some people set it to main. Depending on which one you've got, just switch this command up. So git push Heroku, master or main. One of those 2 will work. If you run into an error, again, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to help you out. But do folks have like GitHub URLs? Like I'm talking about, you go to github.com and you go to just like that link that I sent you guys, like Nathan's web store. So do you guys have, oh, sorry. Do you guys have some links that look like that?
Yes, but those just bring up the repo. They don't bring up a website. Like,
Right. I'm
I
just
need-
interested in the code if you guys have links to your GitHub repos. If anybody's got some. But those are the instructions for deploying your capstone. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to take you on a quick tour of the Heroku dashboard, and then we're going to call it for the night.
So
Just-
Nathan, you wanted, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
I was just going to say, I'm going to have to create new repositories for separate front end and back end. I already have everything in one thing that says like Kyle's capstone or something like that. So the folders exist within that repo, but I need to either move them or I don't know. I see where you can click create new repository in the GitHub website. I don't remember, and I'm sure this was covered in some video that I have to try to go back and find, but what to do to make that folder on my computer connect to that repo.
Yeah. How, Kyle, I know you've got one repo with a back end and a front end. Does anybody else have the same deal? Where they've been putting both of theirs in the same folder? Okay. Got another person. Anybody else put their back end in the same folder next to the front end? Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We've got like 45 minutes. So I'm gonna help you folks break your repo up. Before we do that, I'm going to quickly do a tour of Heroku, and then the folks that wanna have their repos broke up will do that. Everybody else, feel free to do, stay on if you'd like to see that, or you can feel free to drop. So if everybody could go into their dashboard, so go to dashboard.heroku.com. We're going to take a quick look at some of the features that Heroku has. So when you get here and you click on the More button in the top right, there's a button here for viewing logs. I want everyone to know where that's at because this is going to be really important. When you deploy your code up to Heroku, you no longer have access to the terminal that's running it. You've effectively pushed your code up to another computer for that computer to run. So if something goes wrong, and this is probably going to be more helpful when your backend is deployed, but if something goes wrong with your app, one of the places to go and check on your app is by viewing the logs. So if you click on that, this is going to show you all of the logs that your app is producing. So this is the same output that you would see on your computer when you run npm start. And if you do something that is invalid, npm start will spit out a bunch of logs at you and tell you something's wrong. It's the same thing that you're going to see here. So these are all the logs coming out of your app. So this is going to be really helpful for debugging any issues. If someone clicks on a button and it raises an exception, more helpful in the back end than in the front end, because your back end is going to probably throw a lot more errors than the front end will. But this is where your logs are at. And if you do a deploy, you can come in here into the logs, and the logs will show you what the progress of that deploy is. So when you hit push Heroku main in the terminal to deploy your code, you could come in here, keep a browser window open, have the logs open, and you can see what Heroku's doing while you're doing that deploy. It's kind of cool. Okay, so those are the logs. Always remember where the logs are, because that's your insight into how your app is doing. And if there are any problems, that's where they're going to show up, is in the logs. Okay. Then if you go and click on resources, the resources tab up here, Heroku's a business. They're trying to sell you something. And right now, we're not paying them a stinking dime. And because of that, we're getting the bargain bin computers from Heroku. We're getting the we're getting some of the slowest computers in the Heroku data center. If for some reason you don't like how slow your capstone is running, you can come in here and you can give some money to Heroku and they'll give you a faster computer. Completely optional, but if you decide to do that, you need to put in a credit card. There's this whole $7 per dyno per month. Dyno is the fancy Heroku term for server. It really just means server. But you can pay them $7 a month and they'll give you a faster server to run on. Yeah, and I think regardless of how much resources you use, how much data, how much memory, they're going to charge you a flat fee of $7. So that's up to you if you feel like you need a faster server for your capstone. I'm sure the careers in capstone folks would love to reimburse you for the $7. So just keep that in mind if you. And it's really easy. You put in your credit card and then you flip this switch. All of a sudden you have a faster server. There's more add-ons here. We're going to talk about that because some people need Postgres for their backends. So we'll get into that later on in this week. The deploy stuff is basically all the stuff we've covered, how to get your code up to Heroku. If you click on metrics, you have to pay them to get metrics. So this is where that $7 a month comes in. They keep all this kind of locked behind that $7 a month gate. The metrics are pretty good. It'll show you things like how hard your server is working, how much memory it's consumed, how many people are visiting your website, which is really handy if you choose not to use something like Google Analytics or any of those sorts of things. If you click on activity, this is just an audit log of all the deploys you've made. And I know that there's a way, I think this button right here, roll back to here. So if you deploy something and it breaks, so let's say you make a change and it totally stinks. It just made the website crash, or it was not intended, it was bad code. You can click on these roll back to here buttons and it will revert your deploy to an older deploy, which may or may not be helpful. But if you just notice something's really wrong because you changed something, come into here to activity, click on the rollback, and that will roll back to some previous code that you had pushed up before. You can invite people. I think Heroku has a limit of like 3 people. I'm probably wrong, of folks that you can invite, and they can come in and they can also make deploys. So if you're working with other people, this is where you go to invite them. Then, as Shaw pointed out, in the settings page, you can update your app name. There's a whole lot more here that we'll talk about this week. You can see though, this is where the build pack that we registered from the terminal, you can see that showing up here in the settings. So if you wanted to remove the Create React app build pack, you could click that X. But for us, we're going to use that to deploy our apps. The other thing we're going to talk about is adding domains. So you could set up that domain that you bought on Namecheap or GoDaddy or whatever. You could set that up to point to your Heroku app, which is what we'll do once we have everything stood up. Is we'll actually switch all of your Namecheaps over to this if you like Heroku and want to use it. Then lastly, there's this maintenance mode button. Just take note of this being here. I've seen folks that have used Heroku and this has saved their butt. So if you have let's say you take in emails and credit cards and you find out you have a security vulnerability that's printing out people's credit cards to the home page of your website, this is your friend. Maintenance mode will immediately take your Heroku app offline. So if you ever run into a situation where you're like, I've got to take stuff offline right now for some reason, flip that and it will shut everything down. That's it. Any questions? Questions about the homework? Questions about Heroku?
So I had a question about in terms of, so using this as hosting, so this is sort of a more direct way of hosting a website than buying a hosting package from like a domain name seller someplace else.
Yeah, you're a software engineer. This is what you should be doing. If you buy, like, GoDaddy will offer you free web hosting, Namecheap will offer you free web hosting, and some of them, they will charge you an arm and a leg because they upsell it, and folks think I should just buy that because it comes with the domain name that I bought. As a software engineer, this is the way to go. Heroku gives you complete control over what gets uploaded. It comes with all of the command line utilities to make deploys. Like, let's take GoDaddy, for example. If you want to deploy code with GoDaddy, you want to deploy like a front end, they would have some sort of like drag and drop window where you would need to like zip up your code and like put it into their online form deal. We're software engineers. We know how to use the terminal. We know how to handle all these extra bells and whistles. GoDaddy, logs. You're not going to get logs from GoDaddy for your app. And you definitely won't be able to run your backend on GoDaddy because GoDaddy and Namecheap, they are capable of taking static files and serving those. But if you want to run something like Node.js, you're not going to be able to do it there. Does that help answer? Yeah, like some of those places will rob you blind. They'll be like $99 a year for static files, and most people just click it because they're just that's how you do it. I know my parents have fallen into that trap. Other questions? All right, let's go ahead and let's break apart some repos. And if folks want to stick around to see this, feel free to. If you guys got a handle on the homework and feel confident deploying your capstone, at least the front end, I will post that assignment. It'll be due on Sunday, so you don't feel free to work on it at your leisure. But if you've got a handle on it, by all means, have the time back. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of Git and break apart some repos. So Sarah has a repo that needs to be broken up. Kyle has a repo that needs to be broken up. Sarah, can you do the screen sharing and drive for this? And then Kyle, see if you could follow along with what we're doing. Is that good with you, Sarah?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, you drive, you share your screen. Let's do this.
I just need you to stop sharing.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. So go ahead and let's pretend like, let's make this the front end. Let's make a capstone dash backend as the repo. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So up in the top right where you see the plus next to your, click on new repository.
I just have a quick question. I have two folders within my capstone folder, and one says front end and one says back end. So do you want me to go to the front end folder? And well, that's within the repo.
So what we're going to do is we're going to create a back end repo. We're going to take the back end from your current repo, move it over to this new repo. The old repo that you have is going to become the front end.
Okay, so I can always just delete things out of it that are, okay, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so capstone dash backend would be a good name, I think. Sweet, okay, and then you set this to public. Yeah, the only thing to click is add a README file. That's gonna just initialize it with the file. Okay, create. Cool, all right. Are you a GitHub desktop person or are you a terminal?
I've been using GitHub Desktop.
Are you in love with it?
I can do the terminal, that's fine.
Okay. Just so you folks know, when you get your full-time job, you're going to see most folks using the terminal because it's just so much easier than learning the UI. So if you can absorb some of the terminal stuff, it will pay off in the long run. I promise you. Okay, so Sarah, CD up one level, so we're out of my web store folder. Is this where you've been storing all of your repos? So is there a capstone folder in here too?
There's think,
Okay. This is where your capstone.
yeah, I just need one more level.
Okay.
There we are.
So if you say get status, so for everybody following along, get status just tells you all of the changes that are currently in your repo that haven't been committed yet. You can run get status as many times as you want. It doesn't do anything on its own. But get status tells us it will report back this message like you see on the screen. It will report back this message if you're inside of a GitHub repo. So Sarah, if you go up one level and run get status again.
Do you want me inside my backend folder on my terminal?
Not yet. We're going to go ahead and copy down the new GitHub repo in a second. So see how you ran get status and it says not able to find a Git repo?
Yeah.
So Git status helps you understand if you're actually inside of a Git repo. Obviously you're not, and it's saying it can't find anything to report a status on. So from here, go ahead and clone down your Capstone backend. So go into, click on that GitHub page behind the terminal. It's the green box where it says code. This will give you some links for downloading stuff. Yeah, so grab that.
Okay.
Go back to the terminal. And then to download it, you would say,
Get clone.
yeah, exactly. Get clone and then paste that link. Okay, so now it's created it's cloned down your folder so you can CD into it. So do an LS if you want to see all the files that are where you're at. So there it is. There's your Capstone backend repo. So CD into it. And now if you do a git status, it should say, should report something. Cool. So you're inside of a Git repo. It returned. There's nothing here. Okay. Now let's go and grab the backend code, and we're going to take it from your current Capstone and we're going to put it into this one.
Just in Finder?
That works too. We could do it through the terminal or we could do it through Finder, whichever you're more comfortable with.
Okay, this is fine. Just like drag it into the new folder.
So if you want to grab, here's a quick tip. Just, can you hit escape? Will that drop the, nice. Yep. Okay, here's a quick tip. Over in the terminal where you're at in the Capstone backend, say open space dot. Enter. That opens wherever you're at in the terminal in a Finder window. So you can now just drag over.
Oh, nice.
Okay, and then in the terminal, if you do an LS, you should see there's a app backend in there. Nice.
Cool.
So at this point, you can go back into your regular Capstone GitHub repo and delete the app dash backend, maybe drag and drop actually. Yeah, see how it's still there on GitHub?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and delete from your existing Capstone. Let's delete that backend now that we've moved it over. So go back into your terminal. Okay. CD up one level, so you're out of your backend repo. Then CD into the Capstone folder, which is your old Capstone. This is your front end now. So if you do an LS in here, CD into Capstone working. There we go. Now do an LS in here. You should see, oh, it just is, yeah. So drag and drop took the app backend and it moved moved it over. So at this point, let's run a git commit. So we've made some changes in this repo. We're going to commit all of those changes and push them up to GitHub. So say git commit, and then the flags -am. And then this is where you pass in a message. Yep. So something like, moved backend to other repo. Yeah. Okay. So you've created a commit on your computer. It's only on your computer right now. Let's push that up to GitHub. So say git push origin main.
Origin, sorry?
Main.
Main.
Yep. For the folks watching, notice how that git push origin main looked a lot like git push Heroku main. When you say origin, you're talking about GitHub. When you say Heroku, you're talking about Heroku. So these are, you could push to different targets. You could push to Heroku and you can push to GitHub. Origin just is the name for GitHub. This is all bonus stuff. You guys don't really need to know this. Okay. So now we've got the backend removed from your capstone. Now let's go back into the backend capstone really quick. So CD up 2 levels. So one more. Now CD into the capstone backend. Okay, LS. There it is. Okay, now do a git status. Let's see what the backend has. If you do a git status, it says you have an untracked file, app/backend. If you do a git status and it says something like you have untracked files, that means that Git hasn't ever seen it before. And if you, Sarah, if you go into the GitHub window in your browser and go to that repo for the backend, so s/dow capstone/backend, you see this is empty. So even though your computer has the app/backend folder locally, it's not up here on GitHub. So we need to take that folder and push it up to GitHub. So go back to your terminal. And that untracked file, in order to get that into GitHub, you would say git add 2 words and then space and then paste that folder name, apps/backend. So this is gonna, and hit enter. This is gonna tell Git to start tracking that folder. Now you can do your commit and push up to. Perfect. Okay, so you've created a commit. It's on your computer. It's not on GitHub just yet. So yeah, exactly. Git push origin means GitHub and main is the branch, enter. And if you go back to your GitHub page and refresh the screen, there it is.
Awesome.
And your commit message, add backend. See how that's up there? So whatever you type in for that message, that's what's going to show up on GitHub.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, you're welcome. Kyle, how are you doing? Were you able to follow
I
along?
stopped following along because I realized I created my folder on my computer in the wrong place. So I put Kyle's capstone backend inside of the CIC Kyle's capstone, which is going to be the front end. So can I just move that, I guess? Or yeah, I wasn't sure. Their file structure is a little different than mine. So
do it however you want. And Sarah, if you want to repeat that same process with a capstone/front end, you could also get out of that capstone folder and move your front end into a repo that's named capstone front end if you wanted. Like, it's all up to you guys how you want to make your repos and what you want to put in them. Do you want to share your screen, Kyle, and we can tease apart yours, or do you feel like
yeah, I guess. I mean, I already cloned it, so that's where I got to. So I guess I need to, I don't know, I can share my screen, sure.
Yeah.
Just trying to get it situated so it's not too big for the window.
We're just building up YouTube history here for folks that that might run into this later.
Okay.
All right. So you've got a folder called Capstone Backend.
Yeah, but I put it inside this one, which I probably didn't want to do.
So
I don't
did you put it in there? Is that a clone? Did you actually clone down and put it in there?
No, I just moved it. We created the capstone backend and I just dragged this folder, which was here, into there.
So
And
that's
I've
just
also
a
got
folder.
others.
It's not a GitHub repo.
Well, we did clone. I typed the clone command. I got that far.
Okay, so go into your terminal and go into Kyle's capstone. So you're there.
Yeah.
So back up and just say git status. Let's see what's going on here. So you have an untracked file, Kyle's capstone backend. CD into Kyle's capstone backend. Okay, do another git status. Okay, do a git remote --v.
Okay. And what is that?
Okay, CD up one level. Do another git remote --v. Okay, I see what you did. So we need to move that folder up out of this Git repo. It's possible, and you can definitely do this if that's what you're intending to do. It's possible to have GitHub repos inside of other GitHub repos. It just makes things kind of tricky. So we're going to move your folder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's move your folder up and out. So from here, move Kyle's -capstone, move that folder.
In the
So
Finder?
MV.
Oh, here.
Let's do it through terminal for fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd like to practice. It's good.
MV space, and then MV takes two arguments. The first one is what you're trying to move, and the second is where you're trying to move it to. So MV, and then let's grab the folder.
Okay.
And then let's move it.
To, I think at CIC. Where's the other? Wait a minute. Let me cheat. Yeah, CIC Kyle's capstone. Okay.
I think what we want to do is we want to move it up one level. So instead of typing out that, you could type out ... and that will move it up one folder. Yep.
Cool.
Okay, so now you, from where you're at, CD up one level as well.
Okay. I was just looking in the Finder if it moved. And then
Okay, do an LS. There it is.
Cool. All right. Excellent. And then you just have to review the other steps that I didn't do, that I missed.
So
All right,
inside
go back
of
and
the
watch the
Kyle's
video.
capstone backend, just go ahead and CD into Kyle's capstone backend. So I wanted everybody to see this. If you create a new GitHub repo, by default, it's not going to be watching the files that you put in there. So if you do an LS here, do you already have your backend moved in? Okay, do a git status. This is free. Always run this command whenever you want to figure out what's going on. So it has that untracked file. That means Git's not watching it. So it's not going to do anything with that folder when you do commits and pushes. To get Git to watch it, you say git add, and then pass it the name of the folder. So Walkumentary backend. So now Git's going to start watching that folder. Hit enter. Yep. So if you do another Git status, it's going to say, holy smokes, there's a ton of files here. Yep. So there's your server.
It's very, very just beginning of a backend.
So now you have changes, so you can commit those and push them, and they'll show up on GitHub. So do your git commit -am.
AM. Okay.
And then git commit -am takes a message.
Right. And do you have to put quotes? I can't remember.
Yep, quotes.
Okay. Initial commit.
Nice. Everybody does that. Okay, so now you create a commit on your computer. Now, what do you need to do in order to get it up to GitHub?
Push. Does it get pushed?
Right. Git push, origin,
Oh, origin.
and then main, I think, is what your default branch is. No, yours is master, so
Master.
say master.
Okay.
Just like when you do, master does not match any. Go back to GitHub in the browser.
Yeah.
What is the default branch here? Oh, this one's called main. So this one you'll want to push to main. See, yep, on the left it's got a branch.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter what it's. That's odd. How come they didn't match? Oh, because I'm in the capstone folder, not the. Okay. That's going to be annoying. I'm going to have to remember which one to type depending where I am.
Yeah. Well, if you get it wrong, just flip it to main. If you get
Right.
it wrong, flip it to master.
Okay.
Okay, now if you go back to GitHub, you should be able to refresh that page and see your code's actually up here.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Great.
Others that want to practice with Git. Otherwise, we can go ahead and call it early if nobody has anything else.
I had a quick question about setting up new repositories, and we've talked about it a bit, and I can't seem to remember about the git ignore file. And I'm on GitHub, and you can pick templates. Are those useful? Like, would I pick Node because I've been running Node.js, or would I pick there's a Visual Studio? And I'm not sure if that's the same as Visual Studio Code.
Well, have you noticed when you work with VS Code, it creates a .vs Code file in your repo?
I have
you
not
seen
noticed.
that?
No, I have not.
If you go into your
it.
terminal and do an ls-a, which means to list everything, do you see a .vs Code in there?
So it does. Do I have to be at the top level of my terminal, or? Okay, wait. Let me. And
See
VS Code.
Code?
Yes, VS Code. Okay.
So when you open VS Code in a repo, it'll create a little file in there, and sometimes people will accidentally push that up. So that's what the git ignore for VS Code is it's going to download a little template that will automatically ignore that file for you. Same thing with node modules. If you clicked on the Node.js one, it would come with a git ignore that ignored all of your node modules, because most people don't push up their copy of node modules to Git because it's huge.
It only lets me pick one node. I should probably pick Node because of all the modules.
I would do, yeah, that sounds.
Well, hold on a second though, because we actually did a universal git ignore file with Max that ignored all the node modules in the whole computer. So they should automatically be ignored, except for the ones that we accidentally pushed up before we did that file. So you might want to use it on something else.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at creating new repositories. So, but that's a good point. We did do that universal one. But yeah, I was just looking because there's just this huge list here of templates. So I was curious.
And while we're at it, I heard your question, Brielle. Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code they're different things. So if you see Visual Studio, it doesn't mean Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio is a more robust IDE that's more, I would say, backend or like C# oriented, and Visual Studio Code is just like a glorified code editor, but it's better with JavaScript, which is why we use that. So, and is not free. Visual Studio costs money. So.
Very good to know.
Are people actually using Visual Studio?
I do at work. But,
oh, really?
Yeah, because, well, I hate it, but because we run .NET applications, we use Visual Studio. But I do all my actual coding in VS Code, and then, yeah, I kind of use them for two different things, but yeah.
Some C#? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, fun.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
And then I actually had one other bit of questions about setting up repositories. And I know we want to have these things public because we're trying to show off the code we've written. But could you maybe go over more specific points of when we'd want to make our repos private?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I've got a repo where I'm trying to start a small business off of it. And I don't want people to be able to just see my code right now because they could just take it and beat me to the punch. Basically launch the product before I've even finished it. So in those situations where you've got something sensitive, yeah, by all means, make them private. In fact, most of my stuff I make private anyways, because if it has a vulnerability, I don't want them to go onto GitHub and just look at my source code and be able to find those vulnerabilities if they exist. Hopefully we write our code in a secure way. When in doubt, always just do private. I mean, you can always come back and make it public, and usually you want to think about making something public before you just jump to going public, because if you put anything in there sensitive, like Heroku's a bad example because we don't really use any credentials to talk to Heroku that go into the repo. But if, let's say you just put in a secret accidentally just to be able to run your back end, maybe it's like the password to talk to Postgres, and you just commit that to your code. If your repo is public, then all of a sudden everybody on the internet could see what the password to your Postgres is. So I guess I would just recommend start private, then think about, is this code sanitized enough? Have I done a quick search on it, make sure it has no passwords or anything identifying in it, and then go public. Does that help?
Yes, I just am, wondering about the fact that we want to have a portfolio of work that we've done to be able to show as entry level coders that we can code.
In that case, don't feel bad about making it public. Do feel like employers do want to see your portfolio. They would like to see the code that you write. For sure, have some portfolio stuff. But if it were me, just because I'm paranoid, I would still follow the same process. If I was working on something for my portfolio, I would start out with it private. And then before I take it public, I would do a quick 5-minute, 10-minute read through of my code, make sure it doesn't contain anything that has my email address or things that I don't want to share publicly on the internet, passwords, usernames, and then I would go public. You're absolutely right. Yeah, use GitHub to share code for your portfolio. Employers love to see it.
Well, would it be better to, because we also, bought a website with our name that we host through GitHub as a professional site, would it be better to post some of our work directly on our professional site and have everything private in GitHub so that only people that are going to our professional site to review us see it, rather than anybody searching for, because I plan to keep my capstone project online permanently, not just for a demonstration.
It's up to you. There's no right answer to this. I'll tell you what I think is more professional is having your personal website with a nice domain name that is searchable, that people can find you. Use that to link to your projects, like the deployed versions of your projects. And then also on your professional website, because we're here to become software engineers, I think it would also be more than appropriate to post links to your GitHub code. The reason why is because when you're applying for a job, like just seeing someone's code and how they think and how they develop software is worth 1,000,000 words and a long interview. Just being able to see that code, I think in our industry is more than professional, having both of those available. These are good questions. This is fun stuff. Anybody else?
I just wanted to add, this is Latonia. What you just said, Nathan, that's basically the discussion I had with Max. And he basically said, like, he looks for 3 things, like have like screenshots or however you want to do it on your like entry. I call it my digital gateway, and then link to if you're using GitHub or CodePen or Code Sandbox, because I actually want people to go in and test some of the code. So yeah, that's basically what he said. I think he might have shared it with us in class. I can't remember, but just having more control over the code that they actually do see instead of just having everything out there.
Yeah, I mean, front end is a little special because you can just launch it in a browser. For myself, I deal more with the back end. So I can't just link to a CodePen for a server-side language. A lot of folks, what you see is, if you're still running the product, here's the product, you can go and visit it here. Like on my personal website, for example, I list out all the different products that I'm currently still running. And then after that, I include the links to the GitHub code. If you've got CodePens, that's a step above and beyond. That's pretty cool. Especially if you build things like libraries, that would be a really cool thing for folks to see when they're interviewing with you.
Hey, Nathan.
Hey, Sean.
This Shah. Well, I mean, something terrible kind of happened. My computer crashed kind of 20 minutes ago or so. And then, I mean, it wasn't kind of a simple crash. Even I had to put an app ID, everything, change the setting, everything. So everything is gone. And I was about, yeah. And I was about, I've never seen this. I had copies of my capstone in my downloads, 3 different folders. So it's gone.
Oh, Shaw. No.
I mean, about to work with you on the GitHub to push it there. So anyway,
how much of it is pushed up to GitHub?
Nothing almost.
Oh man.
I don't know.
So wait, hold on, walk me through this. So your Mac crashed and you've lost files on your hard drive?
Yes. I mean, they are there,
we
but
gotta share your screen. We gotta try to surgery this.
Sure.
I'm surprised that you lost those files, but you still had a working operating system and you still were able to get into Zoom. Is this another computer you're working on?
No, same computer.
It didn't corrupt anything else?
Do you want me to share the screen?
Yes, please.
I mean, files are there. So like I have my CIC, my capstone, and it's basically nothing. I had the front end here.
Okay, go into the term. Whoa, you're right. Backend has nothing except node modules. Go into the terminal really quick and type in history. Let's see where you were at recently.
Even the setting, the view, everything, I mean, was changed. What should I type? Sorry?
History? Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you were running these commands along with me. Do you have a copy of Nathan's web store on your computer? Because that was like the last thing we did was you clone that down.
That's, yeah, it's CD.
Where is the CIC? In documents, maybe?
Nathan's website was here. It was in my home folder, PWD. That's home folder.
If you just do an open dot to get a Finder window, so dot and then hit enter. Is it in the developer folder, perhaps?
What?
I don't know.
No, it was in the main folder. Was here. It was in this
Oh,
folder. Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Holy moly. Caitlin, you got any ideas here? Time machine? I don't know if
I have my old Mac. It's 9 years old. I never had this type of. I don't know.
What what did
can you open can you one thing to try? Can you open code and see if you could open up a recent file? So from
No, even if this was reset.
oh man.
what the heck?
Even at the apps, I mean, usually I don't keep because it slows the speed. So there were a lot of them. I just removed them. I mean, more than 10. All the apps were here in the dark.
Say anything when it
No.
what did it look like? Like
Just blank and then restarted the computer.
Did the Mac take like a nasty fall or get water spilled on it?
No.
That's really weird. I'm lost. Like I don't know.
I'll work on.
This is just out there, but if you click on the trash can, is there any chance that
Oh, a lot of stuff in the trash can, yeah. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. But I can't restore it.
Is there any way you could piece together, like, is there enough stuff in here? This looks like a whole bunch of node modules.
That's what I will be doing. I mean, it's a pain, a sticking process, but I will see. Like, I moved a few here. Why? I created a folder here. This one. Oops. But
oh, so you've gotten some of this back.
But the code is totally different. Like, this is not the index that I had. Server.
Man, this is just more ammunition for trying to convince the rest of the instructors that we should do Git much, much earlier on and have people back their stuff
we
up.
did that, but somehow I changed the address, the directory, and I was going to push this actually with you because I don't want to mess with this. I wanted to do it properly.
Shah, can you think of a file, a unique file, like a file name that we can easily find that maybe was lost?
Where?
In any of your capstones, can you think of a file name? I'm thinking we could try to search. Maybe it's just moved somewhere else.
But it's not in the system. It's definitely here in the trash can, recycle bin.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do other than dig through the trash can trying to pull what you can.
I will try.
Yeah, because if you search
for
if you search for index, of course it's going to show up a million things. I'm just wondering if.
Yeah. So I will see what I can salvage from this.
Man, I am so sorry.
No, that's fine.
That is unlucky break.
Even Heroku restarted, so it was asking me for a verification. Oh, it's kind of.
That's strange. I mean, once you get to the point where you've recovered as much as you can, for sure do a git commit, push it up. Because yeah, I don't know what we can do. Could we pay somebody to recover the files? Probably.
But it takes time. The thing is, I mean, yeah, paying, you have to send it to over, yeah. So everything was easy, even my browser was reset, so I had to log in again to Gmail, all the accounts. So this is what I get for Heroku.
Oh, yeah, I think Heroku wants you to make a multi-factor deal. So if you go and do you have a one-time password app that you use?
One time, I have it on my phone. No, not I know.
Yeah, so I think it just wants you to add add
Anyway, so
extra
the
work.
first things, so I will go through this. I have to, yeah, and see what I can recover.
Cool.
So that's where, and then I mean, I can set up sometimes if you have time office hour with you and see what to do with.
Yeah. Yeah, holler at me. More than happy. Sorry to hear that, man.
No worries.
Stinks.
Should never trust technology, even if it's harmful.
All right, folks, we're over. If anybody has any last questions, feel free.
Thanks, Nate.
Otherwise, we're gonna. Yeah, thank you. Oh man, I'm gonna be thinking about that later. Anybody has anything else? Otherwise, have a great evening. And tomorrow we will talk about deploying some backends. Cool. See you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening.